10 Manipulative Techniques for Influencing People. Published by Audiobooks Hub. Introduction. People like to believe they are rational, immune to manipulation, and masters of their own decisions. We tell ourselves that every choice we make, from what we buy to whom we trust, comes from our independent judgment. Yet, every day, subtle forces nudge our thoughts, emotions, and actions without us even realizing it. The ad we linger on for just a second longer, the colleague whose suggestion feels strangely persuasive, the stranger whose request we can't quite refuse, these aren't coincidences. They are the fingerprints of techniques designed to influence. Manipulation often carries a negative meaning. We imagine puppet masters pulling strings in smoky rooms, con artists spinning lies, or ruthless politicians twisting facts. But manipulation is not always so sinister or obvious. It's also woven into everyday communication, the way a teacher motivates a student, a manager inspires a team, a negotiator frames an offer, or a friend convinces you to go out when you'd rather stay home. Influence, after all, is part of being human. Without it, societies wouldn't function. But in the wrong hands, these same techniques can become powerful weapons, ones that shape choices, undermine autonomy, and even rewrite reality. This book is about the hidden architecture of influence. It's not a manual on how to deceive or harm people. Rather, it's an X-ray of the methods used to guide, push, or subtly coerce others, so you can recognize them and decide for yourself how to respond, or, if you choose, to use them responsibly. Understanding these techniques does not make you manipulative. It makes you aware. And awareness is protection. Over the next chapters, you'll discover 10 of the most effective manipulative techniques used in business, politics, relationships, and everyday life. Some are ancient and have been practiced for centuries under different names. Others have emerged from modern psychology and behavioral science. Each chapter will explore one technique in depth, how it works, why it's powerful, and how it shows up in real situations. You'll also see the ethical boundaries, where influence ends and exploitation begins. Imagine walking into a conversation and instantly spotting the cues someone is using to tilt your perception. Imagine knowing the exact psychological lever behind a headline, a sales pitch, or a social media post. Imagine feeling less pressured, more in control, and able to decide based on your own reasoning instead of someone else's design. That's what this book aims to give you, not paranoia, but clarity. By the time you finish, you will have a mental map of the most common manipulative strategies. You'll understand how they bypass critical thinking, how they trigger emotion, and how they shape decisions. And you'll have practical tools for both recognizing and, if you choose, ethically applying these techniques in your own communication. There's one more thing. In the last chapter, after the 10 techniques, you'll find a short but powerful conclusion, not a simple summary, but a hidden principle that runs through all of them. It's the why behind manipulation itself. Once you understand that final key, every technique in this book will look different. You'll not only see how manipulation works, you'll see why it works and how to step outside of it. Chapter 1. One of the most invisible but potent manipulative techniques is framing. It is so subtle that you rarely notice it happening, yet it shapes almost every decision you make. Framing is not about lying or changing facts. It's about changing the way facts are presented. With the right frame, even an unappealing offer can seem irresistible. With the wrong frame, even the best idea can feel unappealing. This is the art of setting the stage before anyone even walks onto it. Imagine two doctors describing the same medical procedure. One says, "This treatment has a 90% survival rate." The other says, "This treatment has a 10% death rate." Both are telling the truth. But which one makes you feel safer? Which one would you choose? This is framing at work. It doesn't alter reality, it alters perception. And perception is what drives decisions. Politicians, advertisers, and negotiators know this instinctively. When a government introduces a tax cut, it might frame it as putting money back in your pocket rather than reducing public services. A car commercial frames its product not as expensive, but as premium. A manager frames an unpopular change as an opportunity rather than a risk. These are not accidental word choices. They are carefully designed frames built to evoke a particular reaction. Framing works because humans do not process information neutrally. Our brains are wired to respond to context. Behavioral economists have shown repeatedly that the way a choice is presented dramatically changes what we do. In one famous study, when people were told that beef was 75% lean, they rated it as better tasting than when told it was 25% fat, even though it was the exact same meat. This isn't about intelligence. It's about instinct. The frame taps into deep cognitive shortcuts that evolved to help us make quick judgments in uncertain situations. If you understand framing, you start to see how conversations, headlines, and offers are structured. A good manipulator rarely argues facts. They argue frames. Instead of fighting someone on whether their product is expensive, they reframe the conversation to focus on its long-term savings. Instead of debating whether a decision is risky, they frame it as inevitable or patriotic or a once-in-a-lifetime chance. The frame shapes what seems normal, desirable, or necessary. In personal relationships, framing can be just as powerful. Think about an argument where one person says, "You're being selfish," versus, "I feel hurt because my needs aren't being considered." The first frame puts the other person on the defensive. The second frame invites empathy. Or consider a friend persuading you to go to an event. "Come on, don't be boring," versus, "This will be a great memory for us." Both want the same outcome, but the frame completely changes how you feel about agreeing. Framing can even influence how you see yourself. Marketing experts know that people buy identities as much as products. You're not just buying running shoes, you're buying the frame of "I am a healthy, active person." You're not just joining a club, you're joining the frame of "I belong to an exclusive community." The frame becomes part of the self-image, which makes the choice feel natural instead of forced. Why is this manipulative? Because framing can bypass your critical thinking. When someone frames an issue, they're often deciding in advance what you will pay attention to and what you'll ignore. If a salesperson frames a high price as an investment, you might stop thinking about whether you need the product at all. If a politician frames a law as protecting freedom, you might not notice what freedoms it restricts. The frame creates a mental shortcut and you take it. Yet framing is not inherently evil. You use it every time you tell a story. Teachers frame lessons to make them memorable. Leaders frame goals to inspire action. Parents frame chores as helping the family to motivate children. The ethical question is whether the frame helps the other person see reality more clearly or hides important information from them. Transparent framing empowers. Deceptive framing manipulates. So how do you defend yourself against manipulative framing? The first step is awareness. Whenever you hear an offer, a slogan, or even a friend's suggestion, ask yourself, how else could this be described? If someone says, "This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity," try framing it as, "This is a high-pressure sales tactic." If someone says, "This plan saves money," ask, "Compared to what? At what cost?" Seeing the alternative frames gives you back your power to choose. Another way is to slow down your decision-making. Framing works best when you react quickly, before you've had time to think. By pausing, even just a few seconds, you give your rational mind time to catch up. That's often enough to see the frame and step outside it. If you choose to use framing yourself, do it consciously and ethically. Don't use it to trick or harm. Use it to clarify, to motivate, to help others see a perspective they might otherwise miss. For example, framing a boring but necessary task as part of a bigger mission can give your team energy. Framing feedback as an opportunity rather than criticism can help someone grow. These are ways to use the power of framing without crossing the line into manipulation. Framing is the first technique in this book because it underlies so many others. Nearly every manipulative strategy starts by deciding what story will be told, what context will be emphasized, and what will be left out. If you can recognize a frame, you're already halfway to recognizing the manipulation. Once you see it, you can ask better questions, make clearer choices, and even frame your own ideas in ways that resonate more strongly. Remember, the world isn't just presenting you with facts. It's presenting you with framed facts. Every headline, every pitch, every argument is a picture in a frame. The picture might be beautiful, but the frame can change how you see it. When you start noticing frames, you stop being a passive observer and become an active interpreter. And that's the first step toward freedom from manipulation. Chapter 2. If framing is about shaping how you see something, reciprocity is about shaping how you feel you must respond. It's one of the oldest levers of influence, rooted so deeply in human nature that it can be hard to resist. Reciprocity is the invisible rule that says, if someone does something for you, you should do something for them. On the surface, it sounds fair, even noble. Societies couldn't function without it. But in the hands of a skilled manipulator, reciprocity can be turned into a subtle trap. Picture yourself walking through a busy market. A smiling vendor hands you a small piece of fruit to taste. Free sample, he says. You didn't ask for it. You don't even know if you want it. But suddenly you feel a slight pull, an impulse to buy something from him, even just a small amount. That's reciprocity at work. The gift creates a sense of obligation, and your brain wants to balance the scales. Psychologists have studied this effect for decades. In one famous experiment, people were far more likely to buy raffle tickets from a stranger if that stranger had just given them a free soda. The price of the soda didn't matter. The gift didn't even have to be wanted. What mattered was the feeling, they gave me something, now I should give back. The urge is automatic, and it can override your actual preferences. In everyday life, this principle shows up constantly. Charities send you free address labels in the mail before asking for donations. Websites offer free trials, free guides, or free consultations before presenting a paid service. A colleague goes out of their way to help you with a project and later expects your support for their idea. These aren't random acts of kindness. They're calculated triggers designed to activate reciprocity. Manipulators understand that the gift doesn't have to be big. It just has to be personal enough to feel like a favor. A small compliment, a piece of information, a tiny concession in a negotiation, or a seemingly generous gesture can all create an invisible debt. Once you feel that debt, you're much more likely to say yes to a request you would otherwise decline. It works in relationships, too. Someone might shower you with attention, gifts, or favors early on, creating a sense of loyalty or gratitude. Later, they begin asking for bigger and bigger things, counting on your reluctance to appear ungrateful or selfish. You might not even realize you're being conditioned to comply. By the time you do, the pattern feels normal. Why does this work so powerfully? Because humans evolved in small groups where reciprocity was a survival mechanism. If someone gave you food today, you were expected to return the favor tomorrow. Failing to reciprocate could mean being cast out of the group. This instinct is so strong that it persists even when it's clearly being exploited. We don't like to feel indebted. We like to feel fair. Manipulators know this. The reciprocity trap often works hand in hand with urgency or scarcity. A salesperson might give you a special discount or a limited time bonus and then immediately ask for a commitment. Your gratitude plus the ticking clock pushes you to decide fast. In your rush to reciprocate, you may skip over questions you'd normally ask. But reciprocity can also be positive and ethical. You probably use it all the time without thinking. Helping a neighbor move after they helped you, picking up a coworker's shift because they once covered yours, sharing information with someone who's been generous with you. These acts build trust and social capital. The difference between ethical reciprocity and manipulative reciprocity is transparency. Ethical reciprocity doesn't hide the ask. It doesn't create artificial debts. It gives freely or asks openly. Manipulative reciprocity disguises the motive, creating a sense of obligation before revealing the cost. How do you defend yourself from the reciprocity trap? The first step, again, is awareness. When someone gives you something unexpectedly, a freebie, a compliment, an extra concession, pause and ask, is there an expectation attached to this? If a favor feels like it comes with strings, mentally separate the gift from the ask. You are free to accept the gift and still say no to the request. Gratitude does not equal obligation. Another useful tactic is to give yourself time. The power of reciprocity fades with distance. If you receive a gift or a favor, wait before making a decision. A cooling-off period helps you distinguish between genuine appreciation and manipulated obligation. And if you use reciprocity yourself, use it with integrity. Offer value because it's the right thing to do, not because it's bait. If you hope for something in return, be honest about it. "I'll do this for you if you can help me later" is not manipulation, it's a clear deal. Manipulation is when you make it seem like a gift but treat it like a contract. Reciprocity is such a powerful lever because it feels moral. Most people want to be fair. We want to repay kindness. That's what makes the trap so effective. But once you see the mechanism, you can step back and decide consciously. You can appreciate a gift without feeling owned by it. You can give without expecting to take. And you can recognize when someone's generosity is really just a subtle way of asking for something bigger. In a world full of free samples, free trials, and free favors, this awareness is not cynicism, it's self-defense. It lets you enjoy true generosity without being pulled into obligations you never agreed to. It lets you act from choice rather than compulsion. And that's the real power, to give and receive freely, without hidden strings. Chapter 3. Nothing awakens desire faster than the fear of missing out. The moment something feels rare, limited, or slipping away, we want it more. This is the scarcity illusion, a technique that doesn't necessarily make something better, but makes it feel urgent and valuable simply because it appears scarce. Like framing and reciprocity, it taps into an ancient part of human psychology. For most of history, scarcity was real. Food, shelter, mates, and opportunities were limited. Those who acted quickly often survived. Those who hesitated often lost out. That instinct still runs deep, even in a world of abundance. Think about how you react to phrases like "only 2 left," "limited time offer," or "exclusive access." Even if you weren't planning to buy, a little part of you leans in. You start imagining what it would feel like to lose the chance. That image of loss often drives behavior more powerfully than the promise of gain. Psychologists call this loss aversion. We feel the pain of losing more intensely than the pleasure of gaining. Scarcity marketing is built on this quirk of the mind. Retailers know this well. Airline websites show how many seats are left at this price. Hotels flash 3 rooms remaining. Online stores add countdown timers to sales pages. None of these details necessarily reflect actual supply. Sometimes the scarcity is real, often it's manufactured. The point isn't whether the item is good. The point is to make you feel that waiting equals losing. That feeling makes you act. Scarcity doesn't just apply to products. It works in social situations too. A manager might frame a project as a unique opportunity you can't afford to miss. A recruiter might call a job a rare opening to push you to accept quickly. A person might make themselves seem hard to get to increase their perceived value in dating. By appearing less available, they become more desirable. The scarcity illusion makes people compete for attention, even when that attention may not be special at all. In negotiation, scarcity is one of the sharpest tools. If you think an offer is fleeting, you're less likely to ask questions or push back on terms. You may even accept a worse deal than you'd normally tolerate, simply because you don't want to lose it. Skilled negotiators know this and will use deadlines, limited slots, or other interested parties to create pressure. Sometimes these are real constraints, sometimes they're fiction. But your brain reacts the same way either way. What makes scarcity so manipulative is how it short-circuits rational evaluation. When something feels scarce, we automatically assume it's more valuable. But value and rarity aren't the same thing. A limited edition trinket might be worthless to you in practical terms, but the idea that it's one of only 50 can make it feel irresistible. Conversely, something abundant can be extremely valuable, like air, sunlight, or information, but we take it for granted because it's always there. Scarcity distorts our sense of worth. Scarcity also breeds competition. When people think something is limited, they fight harder for it. This can be seen at sales events, ticket releases, even in relationships. The manipulator benefits twice. Not only do people act faster, but they also act more aggressively, sometimes convincing themselves the item or opportunity is worth more simply because others want it too. It's the auction effect. Bids rise not because the item changed, but because the environment of scarcity triggers rivalry. There's also a subtler form of scarcity manipulation, time pressure. Even if there's no limit on supply, limiting decision time creates the same feeling. Offer ends tonight. You must decide now. The door will close soon. This artificial urgency stops people from gathering information, reflecting, or comparing alternatives. In the rush, they default to action. Later, when the pressure is gone, they often regret the choice. Ethically, scarcity can be legitimate. If a concert really has only 1,000 seats, or a scholarship fund has limited slots, it's fair to communicate that. Being transparent about real constraints helps people make informed decisions. The manipulation comes when scarcity is exaggerated, faked, or used to bypass consent. A countdown timer that resets every day isn't scarcity, it's deception. A person who withholds attention purely to create demand isn't being authentic, they're playing a game. How do you protect yourself from the scarcity illusion? Start by pausing whenever you feel pressure to act quickly. Ask yourself, if this weren't scarce, would I still want it? If I had more time, what would I decide? What's the real cost of walking away? By reframing the situation, you can see whether the scarcity is real or manufactured. Even taking a few deep breaths can weaken the urgency enough for your rational mind to engage. It's also helpful to remember that very few opportunities are truly unique. Another flight, another job, another relationship, another sale will almost always come along. Manipulators count on you forgetting that. They want you to feel this is your one and only shot. The moment you remember abundance, that life is full of alternatives, their power weakens. You regain choice. If you use scarcity yourself, use it honestly. Be clear about limits and deadlines. Don't pretend something is rare if it isn't. Scarcity can be a useful motivator when real. A limited enrollment can help a teacher focus on students. A deadline can help a team complete a project. A limited edition can make a creative work special. But honesty preserves trust. Once people discover you're faking scarcity, you lose credibility, and credibility is harder to win back than attention. Scarcity works because it speaks to our survival instincts. It turns off deliberation and turns on action. It's why auctions, flash sales, and exclusive clubs feel so exciting. It's also why people regret decisions made under pressure. By learning to spot the scarcity illusion, you give yourself a buffer. You can feel the pull without being dragged by it. You can admire the shiny, limited offer without forgetting to ask if you even want it. In the world of influence, scarcity is like fire. It can cook your food or burn down your house. Used ethically, it can help people act on good opportunities and avoid procrastination. Used manipulatively, it can empty wallets, trap people in bad deals, and make them chase what they don't need. Awareness lets you decide which it will be. Chapter 4. One of the strongest and most automatic forces in human behavior is our tendency to obey authority. From childhood, we're taught to listen to parents, teachers, coaches, and later to bosses, experts, and officials. This instinct is necessary for any society to function. We can't personally verify every rule, every instruction, every piece of knowledge. But the same instinct can be hijacked. People can use the aura of authority, sometimes real, sometimes faked, to bypass your critical thinking and nudge you into compliance. This is the authority halo. Think of the white coat. In hospitals, it signals training and expertise. But researchers have shown that when someone simply wears a white coat, even an actor, people rate them as more credible. They're more likely to follow instructions or believe statements without question. The coat becomes a symbol, a shortcut for trust. And once trust is established, influence follows. Advertising taps into this constantly. A toothpaste ad shows a smiling dentist in a lab coat. A financial service flashes recommended by top analysts. A supplement claims clinically proven with no details. The point isn't the data, it's the authority cues, titles, uniforms, credentials, charts, jargon. Even the setting matters. A photo of someone in an office or a studio backdrop can make them seem more expert than they are. These symbols create the halo. an impression of competence that spreads to everything they say. This isn't limited to products. In workplaces, people defer to managers or senior staff even when those people are wrong. Meetings often go silent after the highest-ranking person speaks because their authority sets the tone. In politics, citizens accept policies more readily if they're announced by someone with a title or in a formal setting. Even online, the number of followers, verification badges, or the way a profile looks can act as authority cues. Someone who seems popular or official is more likely to be believed, regardless of the content. The authority halo works because it saves cognitive effort. Evaluating every claim on its own merits is exhausting. Instead, we look for shortcuts. Who's saying it? What do they look like? Do they sound confident? Do others treat them with respect? If the cues line up, we relax and accept. That's efficient, but manipulators exploit it. They borrow authority from symbols, settings, or affiliations to make their words stick. Some go further and create false authority outright. A person may invent credentials, exaggerate titles, or name-drop institutions to sound impressive. Others will adopt the tone of authority, deep voice, slow pacing, absolute statements, knowing that confidence itself can be mistaken for competence. The more certain someone sounds, the more people assume they know what they're talking about, even when they don't. Real authority can be just as manipulative when used unethically. A doctor might push unnecessary treatments for profit. A manager might cite company policy that doesn't exist. A celebrity might promote a product they don't believe in. Because the audience sees the title, uniform, or status, they assume the message is trustworthy. Few pause to ask whether the authority figure has conflicts of interest, hidden motives, or gaps in knowledge. How do you defend yourself from the authority halo? The first step is to separate the person from the claim. Ask, if someone else said this, would it still seem true? Check the actual evidence, not just the credentials. Look for independent verification. Real experts can explain their reasoning simply. Fake experts often hide behind jargon. If a claim is important, don't be afraid to ask for sources or proof. Authority should invite scrutiny, not shut it down. Also pay attention to your own emotional response. Do you feel impressed by the way someone looks, speaks, or carries themselves? Do you feel a little intimidated, as if questioning them would be impolite? Those are signs the authority halo is at work. Take a mental step back. Remind yourself that a title or symbol does not make someone infallible. They're still human, still capable of error or bias. When you use authority yourself, do it with honesty. If you have genuine expertise, share it clearly and transparently. Let people know your qualifications but also your limits. Use your status to inform, not to coerce. The moment you hide behind your position instead of your evidence, you're stepping into manipulation. People may obey in the short term, but they'll lose trust when they realize you've misused their respect. The authority halo is powerful because it feels safe. Following a confident leader, a credentialed expert, or a respected brand relieves us of the burden of choice. But that relief can be dangerous. History is full of disasters caused by blind obedience to authority, bad investments, harmful policies, even atrocities. Awareness doesn't mean rejecting authority altogether. It means checking it. It means remembering that credibility is earned, not borrowed. Once you see the authority halo, it loses some of its magic. You start noticing the costumes of expertise, the signals of status, the way settings and tone are used to build credibility. You can still respect real experts and learn from them, but you won't confuse symbols with substance. And that shift, subtle as it is, makes you far harder to manipulate. Chapter 5. Some techniques don't push you outright. They ease you in. They start small, almost innocent, then gradually grow until you're doing something you never planned to do. This is the foot in the door effect. It works because of a powerful human need, the need to appear consistent. Once we say yes to something, we feel pressure to keep saying yes, even when the next request is bigger. The initial agreement becomes a seed, each later request grows from it like a vine. Picture this. A stranger knocks on your door and asks you to put a big, ugly sign in your yard supporting a cause. You'd probably say no. But if, a week earlier, the same stranger had asked you to sign a tiny petition for the same cause, a trivial action, you might have said yes without thinking. That first small yes changes your self-image. I'm the kind of person who supports this. When the bigger request comes, it feels inconsistent to refuse. Researchers have shown this effect again and again. A small initial action dramatically increases compliance with larger actions later. Salespeople rely on this constantly. They ask you to answer a quick survey, to accept a free sample, to sign up for a no-obligation trial. These tiny steps aren't just data collection, they're hooks. Each yes softens your resistance. By the time they ask you to commit to a purchase, you've already said yes 3 times. Saying no now feels like breaking a pattern you started. The foot in the door isn't always about money. In workplaces, a manager might ask you to just stay late this once, or take on a small extra task. Once you agree, larger requests follow. In relationships, someone might test boundaries with small demands before moving to bigger ones. Over time, your tolerance shifts without you noticing. By the time you realize how far you've gone, the pattern feels normal. Why does this work so reliably? Because people want their behavior to align with their identity. After you agree to something, you unconsciously adjust your self-story. I'm a helpful person, I'm a supporter of this cause, I'm committed to this team. When the next request comes, rejecting it would contradict that story. Consistency feels virtuous. Inconsistency feels uncomfortable, even when it's logical. Manipulators know how to exploit that discomfort. This technique also exploits a bias called commitment escalation. Once we've invested time, effort, or reputation in something, we're more likely to keep investing even if it's no longer in our interest. We tell ourselves, I've come this far, I might as well finish. That's how small donations lead to big ones, small favors lead to major obligations, and minor involvement leads to full-scale participation. Ethically, foot in the door can be used for good. Therapists use it to help people build habits, start with a tiny action, then expand. Activists use it to mobilize support for worthy causes. Teachers use it to build student confidence. The difference between ethical use and manipulation is transparency. When you use small requests to genuinely help someone build toward their own goals, you're supporting autonomy. When you use them to push someone toward your hidden agenda, you're manipulating. How do you defend yourself? The simplest way is to recognize the pattern early. If someone asks you for a small favor, pause and ask yourself, where could this lead? If they ask for more later, will I feel pressured to agree? You can agree to the small favor and still refuse the larger one, but you have to give yourself permission to do so. Remind yourself that consistency is a choice, not a trap. You're not obligated to keep saying yes just because you started. Another defense is to slow down your responses. The power of foot in the door weakens if you take time between the small and the large request. When you revisit your reasons for agreeing, you may realize the first yes doesn't logically require the second. Creating space helps you step out of the automatic need to be consistent. If you use this technique yourself, use it ethically. Start small to help people ease into positive changes or big commitments they genuinely want. Be clear about the path from small to large. Give them the chance to opt out without shame. Transparency keeps influence from becoming manipulation. The foot in the door is subtle because it doesn't feel like pressure. It feels like your own choice. That's what makes it so powerful. You're not being pushed, you're being led by your own desire to appear consistent. But once you recognize the mechanism, you can stop and ask, is this still what I want? That single question can break the spell. In the world of influence, not every push is a shove. Sometimes it's just a gentle nudge at the beginning, a small ask that seems harmless. But small steps add up. A foot in the door can become a whole body in the room. Awareness lets you decide whether to open wider or close it before it's too late. Chapter 6. There is a particular kind of manipulation that rarely looks like manipulation at all. It doesn't rely on pressure, intimidation, or even obvious persuasion. Instead, it works by planting a seed and letting the other person water it themselves. This technique is known as the illusion of choice, giving people options that appear different but all lead to the outcome you want. It's one of the most subtle yet powerful ways to guide decisions, because it allows the target to feel autonomous even while they are being steered. We all crave a sense of control. Psychologists call it the need for agency, the deep human desire to feel that our choices are our own. When that sense of agency is satisfied, we're more cooperative, less resistant, and even more satisfied with outcomes. When it's threatened, we dig in our heels. The illusion of choice exploits this bias by presenting several paths forward, all carefully selected to end at the same destination. It makes compliance feel like freedom. Think of a parent negotiating with a child who refuses to get dressed for school. Instead of commanding, "Put on your clothes," the parent might ask, "Do you want to wear the blue shirt or the green shirt today?" The child feels empowered, but the outcome is still, they get dressed. In sales, a representative might offer a basic and a premium package, knowing full well that either purchase benefits the company. In politics, a leader may frame a policy debate so that both alternatives favor their agenda. What makes the illusion of choice especially potent is that it sidesteps direct confrontation. When people believe they're choosing freely, they're far less likely to push back. In fact, they often defend the choice they made, even if it was engineered. This is called choice-supportive bias, the tendency to rationalize decisions after the fact. It means that once someone has chosen one of your options, they may become even more invested in it, convincing themselves it was what they wanted all along. The technique works best when the options seem meaningfully different on the surface. If they're too obviously similar, the target may sense manipulation. It also works when there's a genuine element of freedom, the person really can pick, and the picker does gain something of value. The key is not to make people feel cornered, but to make them feel clever for choosing. In other words, the illusion of choice isn't about lying, it's about framing. You create a menu of possibilities that aligns with your goal while still offering authentic benefits. Ethically, this raises questions. Is it manipulative for a parent to offer shirt colors? Probably not. It helps a child develop decision-making skills. But what about a company offering a limited-time deal with multiple plans, none of which is in the customer's best interest? Or a politician framing a referendum so that both outcomes increase their power? That's where manipulation becomes exploitation, when the freedom is a facade and the person's welfare is disregarded. If you're on the receiving end, spotting the illusion of choice requires slowing down. Ask yourself, who designed these options? Are there other paths not presented here? What would happen if I didn't choose any of them? Often, the mere act of recognizing the frame weakens its grip. You step outside the menu and start seeing the whole restaurant. If you're applying this technique, consider your intention. Are you trying to help someone move toward a beneficial action they're resisting, like encouraging a patient to take medicine by letting them pick the time of day? Or are you trying to trap someone in a decision that benefits only you? The difference lies in whether your options are honest and whether they respect the other person's autonomy. The illusion of choice has a long history. Ancient orators used it when offering audiences two different paths, both leading to the conclusion they wanted. Modern behavioral designers use it in apps, interfaces, and marketing campaigns. Even subtle touches, like highlighting one button in bright colors and making another look dull, are ways of steering choice without overtly restricting it. Each of these methods works not because people are foolish, but because we're wired to prefer choosing to being commanded. One fascinating twist of the illusion of choice is that it can actually increase satisfaction. When customers feel they've picked something themselves, even from a limited menu, they often rate it higher. In experiments, people who were given a pre-selected option but told it was their own choice were more likely to stick with it. This means that, when used ethically, the technique can enhance cooperation and positive feelings. A skilled negotiator, for instance, might use it to reach a win-win outcome faster, with less friction. Still, the power of this technique makes it dangerous in the wrong hands. Entire industries, from advertising to social media, depend on creating the perception of free choice while quietly shaping behavior. Click here, buttons, recommended feeds, curated playlists, all are forms of structured choice that guide where our attention goes. Without awareness, we may think we're exploring freely while walking a carefully laid path. To protect yourself, it helps to pause before making decisions and ask, What are my real options? Who benefits from each? What's missing from this menu? Could I design my own alternative? That tiny moment of reflection can break the spell and restore true agency. And if you're in a position to influence others, remember that offering choices can be powerful, but the power is in how you frame it. Use it to reduce resistance, build cooperation, or help someone move toward a goal they already value. Avoid using it to limit people's vision or funnel them into outcomes that harm them. In the long run, manipulation that erodes trust backfires. Influence that respects autonomy creates lasting relationships. The illusion of choice teaches us something profound about manipulation. People don't just want outcomes, they want ownership of outcomes. They want to feel that they decided, even if the path was suggested. Recognizing this truth gives you leverage. Respecting it gives you integrity. Chapter 7. Some manipulation techniques work by pushing. Others work by pulling. This one works by lowering your defenses so smoothly that you never even notice the opening. It's called liking and mirroring, the strategic use of similarity, rapport, and imitation to make someone feel safe, understood, and more open to influence. At first glance, this might sound harmless. After all, we naturally like people who seem like us. We tend to trust those who share our tastes, our rhythms, our sense of humor. We feel comfortable when someone gets us. This is an ancient social reflex. In small tribes, similarity meant safety. It signaled that someone was an ally, not a threat. Even today, our brains light up when we sense sameness, and they relax. Manipulators know this and deliberately create that sense of sameness. They study your speech patterns, your gestures, your emotional tone. Then, without making it obvious, they reflect it back to you. If you speak quickly, they speed up. If you're reserved, they quiet down. If you lean in, they lean in. If you use certain words or slang, they adopt them too. This mirroring builds unconscious rapport. You feel, on a gut level, I like this person, or I can trust them. Once that connection forms, your resistance drops. Salespeople are taught this tactic in training. A good salesperson doesn't just pitch, they match and mirror the customer. Negotiators do it in high-stakes talks. Even con artists use it to make marks feel instantly comfortable. The effect is subtle but powerful. People who are mirrored not only rate the other person more positively but are more likely to comply with requests, agree to deals, and reveal information. The technique isn't limited to body language. It also applies to values and opinions. A manipulator might start a conversation by emphasizing common ground. I grew up in a small town too. I'm also worried about rising prices. I completely agree about how frustrating that is, before sliding in their real agenda. This creates a frame where disagreement feels like betraying a friend rather than debating a stranger. The danger is that liking and mirroring bypasses our critical thinking. When we're in the presence of someone who feels like one of us, we lower our guard. We stop scrutinizing their claims. We attribute good intentions to them. We may even defend them against others. History is full of leaders, cult figures, and manipulators who use this dynamic. First become beloved, then influence the group. Yet, like many techniques in this book, liking and mirroring isn't inherently unethical. Therapists use it to build trust with patients. Teachers use it to connect with students. Managers use it to lead teams. All of us mirror people we care about automatically. What makes it manipulative is intent. Are you creating rapport to genuinely understand and support, or to extract compliance and gain advantage? If you're on the receiving end, you can spot the tactic by noticing when the similarity feels a little too perfect. Does the other person always seem to agree with you? Do they shift their tone or posture every time you do? Are they reflecting your opinions back to you without adding much of their own? These can be clues that mirroring is being used deliberately. Another way to protect yourself is to separate the messenger from the message. Just because someone feels friendly, warm, or like you doesn't mean their proposal is good for you. First, evaluate what they're actually offering. Ask yourself, if a stranger made this offer, would it still sound right? If you're using this technique, consider authenticity. Mirroring works best when it's grounded in real empathy. People can sense forced imitation. The most persuasive communicators don't mimic to manipulate. They adjust their style to create understanding. That's a subtle but crucial difference. True rapport comes from curiosity and respect, not just tactics. Interestingly, studies show that even light mirroring can increase generosity and cooperation. In experiments, waiters who repeated customers' orders verbatim, instead of paraphrasing, received larger tips. Participants in negotiations reached more amicable agreements when they matched each other's gestures. The human nervous system responds positively to being seen. Used ethically, this can build bridges and reduce conflict. But as with all powerful tools, it carries risk. In the wrong hands, liking and mirroring becomes a disguise, a way to slip past someone's skepticism. When the mask drops, the sense of betrayal can be severe. People feel doubly violated, not just misled but manipulated through their own instinct for connection. The deeper lesson here is that we are social creatures first and rational creatures second. Our judgments of trust, alliance, and similarity happen milliseconds before conscious thought. Recognizing that fact doesn't make you cynical, it makes you aware. You can still enjoy rapport, still bond with people, but you'll also know that warmth can be manufactured. In practice, you might test this by gently disagreeing or changing your style mid-conversation. A genuine friend or partner will tolerate difference and keep connecting. A manipulator may subtly withdraw or shift tactics when the easy similarity disappears. That's a sign. Ultimately, liking and mirroring shows us that influence often begins not with logic but with belonging. When someone feels like one of us, they gain access to our trust. Once inside, they can steer us. This doesn't mean you must avoid rapport. It means you should understand the lever before someone else pulls it for you. Chapter 8. There's a form of manipulation that doesn't persuade you directly at all. It doesn't ask, argue, or even hint. Instead, it creates a backdrop, an atmosphere, a frame. Once you're inside that frame, your mind fills in the rest. This is the power of scarcity and urgency, shaping perception by making something seem rare, fleeting, or about to disappear, so you move before you think. Psychologists have shown for decades that scarcity increases perceived value. When an item is limited, or a chance is once in a lifetime, we automatically feel it's more desirable. Our brains evolved in environments where rare resources really did mean survival, so we're wired to act quickly when something might slip away. Manipulators know this and use it to push people into decisions they might otherwise postpone or reject. Scarcity takes many forms. Only 3 left in stock. Enrollment closes tonight. This opportunity will never come again. Everyone's doing it, don't be left out. Urgency is its twin. Act now, limited time. The window closes soon. Together they create an emotional cocktail of loss aversion and fear of missing out. You're not being convinced of the merits, you're being nudged by the possibility of regret. Marketers have refined this tactic to an art. Airline ticket websites show a red warning that only 2 seats remain at this price. Event organizers flash countdown timers on their pages. Flash sales, exclusive memberships, secret drops, all of these appeal to the same instinct. The goal isn't just to sell more but to shorten the time you spend thinking. Under pressure, you're more likely to act on impulse and less likely to compare alternatives. Scarcity works because it hijacks a deeper bias. We equate difficulty of access with worth. A velvet rope outside a nightclub makes the venue seem more desirable. A long line at a restaurant makes the food seem tastier. In experiments, when identical cookies were placed in 2 jars, one full, one nearly empty, people rated the cookies from the scarce jar as more delicious. The cookies hadn't changed, the frame had. Like other techniques in this book, scarcity isn't inherently evil. Limited offers can be genuine. A small batch of handmade goods, a deadline for a scholarship application, a finite number of seats in a workshop. Urgency can be helpful. It motivates action and cuts procrastination. But when scarcity is manufactured, when there's actually plenty in stock, when deadlines reset automatically, when exclusivity is just a facade, it becomes manipulative. You're no longer responding to reality, you're reacting to a script. How can you defend yourself? First, notice the emotional shift. Scarcity and urgency trigger a specific sensation, a tightening in the gut, a jolt of "I'll miss out." When you feel that, pause. Ask yourself, is this really rare? Is this deadline real? If I wait, what's the actual cost? Sometimes just naming the tactic breaks the spell. The last chance might not be the last chance at all. Another defense is to widen your time horizon. Manipulators thrive on compressing it. They want you to decide now. Give yourself space, even a few minutes, and the emotional pull often weakens. Step back and compare alternatives. Ask, if this weren't scarce, would I still want it? This simple question can save you from costly mistakes. If you're using this technique, examine your motive. Are you highlighting genuine scarcity to help someone make a timely decision? For example, letting them know seats really are limited? Or are you manufacturing scarcity to trap them into a choice they wouldn't otherwise make? The difference matters, not only ethically but practically. False scarcity can backfire when people discover it. Trust lost is hard to regain. Scarcity and urgency also show up outside sales. In relationships, someone might withhold attention or affection to make themselves seem rarer and more valuable. In workplaces, a boss might create artificial crises to force employees into overtime. In politics, leaders may frame issues as immediate threats to rally support. In each case, the pressure isn't about the actual thing but about controlling your emotional state. One of the subtler versions of this tactic is the exclusivity frame, making you feel part of a special inner circle. This offer isn't for everyone, only for people like you. You're one of the few invited. Humans love belonging to exclusive groups. It signals status and safety. But exclusivity can be weaponized to make you accept conditions you wouldn't otherwise accept, simply to maintain membership. Scarcity also pairs easily with the other techniques in this book. Combine it with social proof, and you get "everyone's buying this, but it's almost sold out." Combine it with authority, and you get "this expert's limited seminar ends tonight." Combine it with reciprocity, and you get "I saved a spot just for you." The more triggers stack together, the harder it is to resist. Interestingly, scarcity can also backfire when overused. If every email is urgent, people stop believing you. If every product is limited, customers grow skeptical. This is why master persuaders use scarcity sparingly, like spice. Too much and it smells like manipulation. Just enough and it feels like reality. The deeper lesson of scarcity and urgency is about attention. When you're made to feel time poor, your thinking narrows. You fixate on the thing in front of you and neglect bigger questions. Manipulators know this. They don't need to convince you their offer is good. They just need to convince you you'll regret not taking it. The actual quality of the offer fades into the background. To reclaim your agency, slow down. Breathe. Remember that very few decisions are truly life or death or once in a lifetime. Remind yourself that if something is genuinely valuable, it will likely remain valuable tomorrow. You'll be surprised how many deadlines are flexible once you stop reacting to them. Used responsibly, scarcity and urgency can motivate, inspire, and help people overcome inertia. Used irresponsibly, they exploit fear and drain wallets. The choice is not just about tactics, but about values. Do you want to push people into action by triggering panic, or do you want to guide them honestly by clarifying real constraints? Recognizing this technique will help you see the hidden clocks and velvet ropes around you. They're not always bad, but they're rarely neutral. Behind every ticking countdown, there's someone who benefits if you move faster. Make sure that someone is you. Chapter 9. Some manipulation methods push you to act quickly. Others make you feel special. This one does something quieter but just as powerful. It blurs the line between reality and belief. It's called the repetition effect, shaping people's perceptions by repeating the same message until it feels true, familiar, and safe. We like to think that truth wins on evidence. In reality, our brains have a shortcut. What's repeated often feels more credible, regardless of its accuracy. Psychologists call this the illusory truth effect. When we hear something multiple times, our mental effort to evaluate it decreases, and our sense of familiarity increases. Familiarity feels like truth. Manipulators use this reflex to plant ideas, frame narratives, and steer opinions. You see this everywhere. In advertising, slogans are repeated endlessly. Just do it, because you're worth it, finger-licking good. You may not even like the product, but the words get inside your head. In politics, talking points are hammered over and over until they stick. On social media, a claim shared thousands of times starts to feel like common sense, even if it's baseless. The repetition itself is the persuasion. The effect works because our brains are built for pattern recognition. Repetition lowers cognitive load. It's easier to process something we've seen before than something new. That ease of processing, called fluency, is mistaken for accuracy. We think, this feels right, when what we're really feeling is, this feels familiar. The repetition effect is especially potent when combined with emotion. Pair a repeated message with fear, hope, or anger, and it imprints even faster. Conspiracy theories thrive on this dynamic. The same claims echoed across multiple channels until they feel undeniable. Even small rumors in workplaces or families grow stronger through retelling. Each repetition acts like a coat of paint, deepening the color. Like other techniques in this book, repetition isn't inherently bad. Teachers use it to help students learn. Coaches repeat drills to build skills. Parents repeat values to shape character. But when repetition is used to bypass thinking, to make you accept something without questioning it, it becomes manipulative. The difference lies in transparency and intent. If you're on the receiving end, the first defense is awareness. Notice when you're hearing the same phrase, statistic, or story again and again. Ask, is it being repeated because it's true, or because someone wants it to feel true? Seek out original sources. See if independent evidence supports the claim. Don't confuse echoes with evidence. Another defense is to diversify your information diet. The repetition effect works best in closed loops, when you hear the same message from the same kinds of people. By exposing yourself to different viewpoints, you break the echo chamber. Suddenly, the obvious truth starts looking like one narrative among many. If you're using this technique, be conscious of ethics. Repetition can be a powerful teaching tool or a powerful weapon. It can reinforce learning or it can reinforce lies. Ask yourself, am I repeating this to help someone remember or to make them believe without thinking? The former builds trust, the latter erodes it. One subtle variant of the repetition effect is multi-source repetition. When the same message comes from multiple channels, a friend, a news site, a celebrity, it feels even truer. The sources may all trace back to the same origin, but the appearance of independent confirmation amplifies the effect. Manipulators exploit this by seeding the same talking point in different outlets, creating a sense of consensus. Another twist is visual repetition. Repeated symbols, colors, or slogans can evoke the same sense of familiarity. Think of campaign signs, logos, or hashtags. The more you see them, the more normal and inevitable they feel. Familiarity breeds acceptance, even if you never consciously analyze it. Repetition also pairs easily with other techniques. Combine it with authority, experts keep saying this, and it becomes harder to doubt. Combine it with social proof, everyone is sharing this, and it feels like common knowledge. Combine it with scarcity, you keep hearing this because it's your last chance, and it triggers urgency. A skilled manipulator can weave these together to create an environment where one idea dominates not because it's best, but because it's loudest. The repetition effect reveals a profound truth about human psychology. We don't just believe what's accurate, we believe what's familiar. This doesn't make us stupid, it makes us human. Our ancestors survived by trusting patterns and repeated signals. But in an age of mass communication, that instinct can be turned against us. To reclaim your autonomy, slow down when you notice a repeated message. Ask for evidence. Ask for counterarguments. If you can't find any, that's a warning sign, not of truth, but of a one-sided narrative. Remember, echoes can be loud, but they're still echoes. Used responsibly, repetition can teach, inspire, and anchor good habits. Used irresponsibly, it can create illusions that feel real. The line between influence and manipulation is crossed when repetition becomes a substitute for substance. Ultimately, the repetition effect teaches us something about our minds. Familiarity is not the same as truth, and agreement is not the same as evidence. Recognizing that difference doesn't make you cynical, it makes you free. Chapter 10. Some forms of manipulation operate in plain sight. Others work in the shadows, shaping your choices without ever showing their hand. One of the most powerful, and often overlooked, is emotional anchoring. This technique doesn't target your logic, it targets your feelings. By attaching a strong emotion to an idea, person, or product, a manipulator can make you respond automatically without conscious thought. Emotions are shortcuts. They allow us to react quickly to danger, opportunity, or social cues. Fear warns us of threats. Joy signals safety. Anger sharpens focus. Happiness encourages cooperation. These responses evolved to keep us alive and socially connected. But because they're fast and automatic, they can be hijacked. If someone can trigger a strong emotion in you and then link it to a decision, you may act first and think later. That's emotional anchoring. Consider advertising. A commercial shows a child laughing on a beach, then introduces a vacation package. The happiness of the scene becomes associated with the brand. Later, when you see the company's logo, the positive emotion resurfaces. In politics, leaders often pair speeches with images, music, or personal stories that evoke pride, fear, or anger. Social media influencers link products to self-esteem or belonging. In every case, your feelings guide your judgment more than the actual facts. Anchoring works because of a simple principle. Humans anchor judgments to initial impressions or experiences. Once an emotional connection is formed, it colors every subsequent evaluation. A manipulator might make you feel anxious about missing out, guilty for not acting, or thrilled at a perceived opportunity. Those emotions become the lens through which you view the choice. Even when facts contradict the feeling, the anchor often dominates. This technique is particularly effective when combined with immediacy. Emotions demand attention and action. Fear can make you act before verifying details. Excitement can make you overlook downsides. Joy can make you overcommit. Manipulators understand that if they can anchor a strong emotional response to a situation, they've already won half the battle. Your gut is invested before your mind catches up. Emotional anchoring isn't inherently unethical. Parents use it when teaching children empathy. Coaches use it to motivate athletes. Therapists use it to help patients form positive associations with healthy behaviors. The line between influence and manipulation is drawn at intent. Are you guiding someone to better outcomes, or exploiting emotions to achieve your own ends? On the receiving end, awareness is your best defense. Notice the first emotional jolt you feel when someone presents an idea. Ask yourself, what exactly am I feeling and why? Is this emotion linked to the facts, or is it being triggered intentionally to steer me? Slowing down the response gives you space to evaluate the decision logically, not just emotionally. Another defense is to separate the anchor from the choice. Recognize that the excitement, fear, or guilt is a signal, not the instruction. Treat the emotion as data about how you're reacting, not as a mandate for action. Ask, if I felt neutral, what would I choose? This step helps you reclaim decision-making from automatic emotional pulls. Manipulators often combine emotional anchoring with other techniques we've covered. Scarcity amplifies fear of missing out. Authority strengthens pride or obedience. Social proof intensifies joy or relief. Repetition embeds the emotional response into memory. Layered skillfully, these methods create an environment where your feelings do most of the work and your rational mind follows along. One of the subtler forms is negative anchoring. A person might create a problem or highlight a risk, then present a solution that benefits them. The initial negative emotion, anxiety, concern, or urgency, makes you more receptive to the proposed fix. It's the classic setup in marketing. Show a scary statistic, then offer a product or service that alleviates the fear. In negotiation, highlighting a problem first can make your concession or proposal seem like relief. Ethical emotional anchoring, by contrast, relies on honesty and alignment with genuine benefits. A teacher might emphasize the excitement of learning a new skill to motivate students. A coach might evoke pride in effort to reinforce positive habits. The emotion is real, and the outcome supports the person being influenced. Manipulative anchoring twists the emotion to prioritize the manipulator's gain over the target's best interest. Recognizing this technique also gives insight into yourself. Everyone uses emotions to guide choices, and everyone is susceptible. Being aware doesn't eliminate feelings, it just puts you in the driver's seat. You can experience the joy, relief, or urgency without letting it dictate decisions blindly. Emotional literacy, knowing why you feel what you feel, is the antidote to covert manipulation. The key takeaway is simple: emotions are powerful, but they are not commands. Emotional anchoring can inspire, teach, and motivate, or it can mislead, coerce, and exploit. The difference lies in awareness and intent. When you see the anchor, you can decide whether to follow it, resist it, or reinterpret it. And that awareness is the ultimate safeguard against being influenced without knowing it. By understanding emotional anchoring, you gain clarity on how feelings are woven into persuasion. You start to notice when a tug at your heart or a spike of anxiety is being used as leverage. You realize that influence doesn't always hit you in the head. Sometimes, it lands in the gut first. And once you recognize the anchor, you regain the freedom to navigate the waters of manipulation consciously, choosing which emotional currents to follow and which to resist. Conclusion: by now, you've traveled through 10 distinct techniques of influence and manipulation. You've seen how subtle nudges, repeated messages, emotional triggers, scarcity, and even the gentle art of mirroring can shape decisions without people ever realizing it. You've discovered that manipulation isn't always overt. Sometimes it's a shove, sometimes a whisper. Sometimes it feels like choice, sometimes like fate. And the truth is, all of us, whether we admit it or not, are influenced every day by these forces. The first lesson is awareness. Knowledge is the first line of defense. Once you recognize these techniques, you see them everywhere. In advertisements, social media, workplaces, politics, and personal relationships. Seeing them doesn't make you paranoid, it makes you discerning. Awareness allows you to pause before reacting. It gives you the space to ask, am I choosing this because it's genuinely right for me, or because someone has nudged me, coaxed me, or guided my feelings? That pause is where freedom lives. The second lesson is reflection. Manipulation often exploits automatic responses, our need for consistency, our preference for familiar ideas, our craving for belonging, our reactions to emotion. None of these instincts are flaws. They are human. Recognizing them doesn't make you weak. It makes you capable of making deliberate, thoughtful choices. Reflection is about separating feeling from fact, perception from reality, and influence from consent. It is about asking, is this my decision, or am I being guided? The third lesson is ethical responsibility. Understanding manipulation gives you power, but like all power, it comes with choice. You can use these techniques to manipulate, deceive, or control others, or you can use them to teach, persuade ethically, and lead with integrity. The difference is intent. Manipulation is self-serving, ethical influence respects autonomy and seeks mutually beneficial outcomes. The techniques you've read about can heal, motivate, and guide when applied honestly. They can also harm, exploit, and coerce when applied deceitfully. The choice is yours. As you move forward, remember that influence is rarely absolute. Awareness doesn't make you immune, but it allows you to act with agency. Seeing a tactic in action, scarcity, repetition, emotional anchoring, the foot in the door, doesn't stop it from working entirely, but it gives you the opportunity to respond consciously. You can engage, resist, question, or negotiate. You regain the steering wheel of your mind, instead of letting someone else hold it. This book is not a manual for manipulation, it is a map. It is a way to navigate the currents of influence in a world where information, emotion, and social dynamics are constantly steering us.